Gender equality within Vermont's correctional facility.
Will the Senate please come to order? We will observe a moment of silence in lieu of a devotional this morning. Thank you. Please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any announcements? Seeing none, we have a group of Senate bills being on the calendar for notice and affecting the revenues of the state under Rule 31. They are all referred to the Committee on Finance. S64, S142, S275, S278, S323, S325, and S328. We have a number of Senate bills being on the calendar for notice and carrying an appropriation. Under Rule 31, they will be referred to the Committee on Appropriations. Those include S154, S190, S193, S197, and S220. We have a joint resolution to take up at this time, JRS 45, joint resolution relating to the weekend adjournment on March 20th of 2026, offered by the senator from Chittenden Central, Senator Bruce. Listen to the reading of the resolution.
Resolved by the Senate and House of Representatives that when the two houses adjourn on Friday, March 20, 2026, it be to meet again no later than Tuesday, March 24, 2026.
Now you've heard the reading of the resolution, and the question is, shall the Senate adopt the resolution on its part? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we have adopted the resolution. We now have House bills for reference. H 512, an act relating to regulation of event ticketing market, introduced by Representative Harrison and others. It passed the House on March 12th of 2026. Listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 512, an act relating to the regulation of the event ticketing market.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill, and it is referred to the Committee on Economic Development and Housing and General Affairs. We now have H 573, an act relating to the first certification of an emergency examination, introduced by Representative Burbko, and it passed the House on March 12th of 2026. Please listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 573, an act relating to the first certification of an emergency examination.
Now you've heard the bill's first reading, and it's referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare. H 578, an act relating to the penalties and procedures for animal cruelty offenses, introduced by Representative Krasnow. It passed the House on March 12th of 2026. Listen to the first reading of the bill.
H 578, an act relating to penalties and procedures for animal cruelty offenses.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill. It's referred to the Committee on Judiciary. H 686, an act relating to expanding identification of certain lobbying advertisements, introduced by Representative Sibilia and others. It passed the House on March 12th of 2026. Listen to the first reading.
H 686, an act relating to expanding identification of certain lobbying advertisements.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill. It's referred to the Committee on Government Operations. H 744, an act relating to procedures for arrest without warrant, introduced by Representative Lalonde. It passed the House on March 12th of 2026. Listen to the first reading.
H 744, an act relating to procedures for release after arrest.
Now you've heard the first reading of the bill, and it is referred to the Committee on Judiciary. Orders of the day. We have S211 for third reading. Are there any amendments to be offered prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading.
S 211, an act relating to motor vehicle inspections.
Now you've heard the third reading, and the question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we've passed S211.
Right.
We now have S298 for third reading. Are there any amendments prior to third reading? Seeing none, listen to the third reading.
S 298, an act relating to creating the Vermont Voting Rights Act.
Now you've heard the third reading of the bill, and the question is, shall the bill pass? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we've passed S298. We have on the calendar for second reading S203, introduced on January 6th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Judiciary, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that it ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S 203, an act relating to penalties for second or subsequent violations of operating a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol or drugs.
I recognize the senator from Windham, Senator Hashim, for the report of the committee.
Mr. President, I'm going to take a risk here and refer to this as a simple and technical bill. The purpose of this bill is to clarify language related to prior DUI convictions and subsequent offenses. So unfortunately, DUIs are one of the most commonly charged criminal offenses in Vermont. And the language that we have currently in the penalties section for DUI can lead to confusion for both the prosecution, the defense, and the judge when a defendant has a prior record of DUI convictions. So in order for somebody to be charged with a DUI number 2, their prior offense has to be within 20 years. However, it can be unclear if the defendant can be charged with a second offense if their second violation is within the 20 years, but the conviction is beyond the 20 years. So, for example, if there was a conviction 19 years ago, and then a second violation happened today, but the second conviction happened 2 years from now, the question becomes, does the court, when looking at sentencing, does it rely on the date of the second violation, or does it rely on the date of the second conviction? So the language proposed in the bill clarifies that a second or subsequent offense requires a prior conviction of a DUI, and that the statute of limitations is based on the date of the violation of the second or subsequent offense, rather than the date of the conviction. So we added this clarifying language in a few sections of the statute to address third and fourth offenses for DUIs as well. We heard from the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, the Defender General, and Legislative Counsel. And when it comes to these types of technical changes, one of the litmus tests that I consider is when two inherently adversarial parties agree with each other. In this case, the state's attorneys and the defenders agreed that this change would be a helpful clarification. The vote in committee was 4-0-1, and I ask for the Senate's support.
The question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have ordered third reading of S203. We have on the calendar for action S189, introduced on January 6th of 2026. It was referred to the Committee on Health and Welfare, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 473 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S-189, an act relating to an approval process for reducing or eliminating hospital services.
Recognize the senator from Chittenden, Senator Lyons, for the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill is, we pass it out of your Senate Health Welfare Committees on page 473 of today's calendar. And I will go through the bill briefly, reminding us that what problem is we're solving. As you recall, there was closure of the UVM dialysis program, closure of the Copley Birthing Center, and then pediatric beds in Rutland were also closed as a result of an individual hospital decision. As you also know, we are in the process of transformation where we're looking to see how to ensure that services are provided across the state. We've done that through hospital transformation work and also through the development of a strategic health plan in the state. So this bill is an attempt to resolve the issue around an individual hospital making a decision that can have significant repercussions in the local area by parents or families or individuals affected, and also by other services in other parts of the state. So the first thing that we recognize is that when a hospital makes its decision to reduce or eliminate a service, it does have effects, and it does send a wave out across the local community as well as other areas. So in the first section, when a hospital proposes to intentionally reduce or eliminate any service, and we spent some time on the language, the intent to reduce, so it has to be something that the hospital is doing to save money, for example, or because the service is no longer viable within that organization. The word intent became very important to us, so it's not as if an individual practitioner is leaving and therefore the service is gone. The hospital may want to rehire or find a new individual. So what we heard was from our local folks and others that a notice of intent is very important to send out both to the Agency of Human Services and to the Green Mountain Care Board, as well as healthcare advocate, and to also legislators who are in the service area, so that we aren't surprised when these changes take place, as we have been. And the notice of intent to reduce or eliminate a service has to go out within 60 days prior to that reduction. And then it will explain why that's happening and so on. The notice will explain the rationale for the proposed reduction or elimination and describe how it is consistent with a statewide health care delivery strategic plan once it's established, and the hospital's most recent community health needs assessment conducted for the state resource allocation plan, and also the state health improvement plan, which is a federally required plan. So the hospital will look at those services within the context of the planning process that's going on in the state and locally. That's an important point that we put into the bill. And then the hospital must post the notice of intent, publish the notice of intent. I realize that the word newspaper becomes a little bit archaic here, but that's the language that we have in statute. And they must publish these things within 10 days after the notice is provided. Then, most importantly, the hospital will conduct a public engagement process, so including one or more public hearings to inform the public about this reduction of services and to gather information and data from citizens. And then the hospital will provide a summary of its response, the community response to the Agency of Human Services. The Agency of Human Services accepts the responsibility then for analyzing each service reduction or elimination within the context of the statewide plan, and will then, after some evaluation, provide a non-binding recommendation to the hospital. So this is the non-binding recommendation, particularly now as we're in the process of developing the statewide strategic plan. And if the hospital elects to proceed with reducing or eliminating a service after completing the whole process I've just talked about, then within 5 business days of making that decision, they notify the Agency of Human Services and the Green Mountain Care Board about their decision to continue with the elimination. In the budget review that the Green Mountain Care Board carries out for hospitals, then that service reduction will be included in the analysis of the hospital budget. And one of the things that I think is really very important to note as on section 2 at the end, number 2, it talks about that any savings related to the reduction or elimination will be returned to Vermonters to address affordability concerns, or to payers to be reflected in health insurance premiums, or are reinvested in primary care, prevention, and other community-based services. So to the extent that a hospital service is eliminated or reduced, the savings will accrue to us. The board will then analyze the reduction of services within the budget and also work with the Department of Financial Regulation for the implementation of the changes. The bill shall take effect on passage. We heard from alleged counsel, we heard from members of the Green Mountain Care Board, we heard from the Agency of Human Services, the Chief Healthcare Advocate, and from our Vermont hospitals. And the vote in committee was 5-0-0, and ask for your support, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Senator from Chittenden Central.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I interrogate the presenter?
The presenter is interrogated.
Thank you, Mr. President. One of the things the bill proposes is returning savings to Vermonters, and I'm wondering how that would be mechanized.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's an excellent question. It would go through the budgetary process at the Green Mountain Care Board. So they would evaluate any savings that are there and then would have to work with Department of Financial Regulation through the insurers, the payers, or would have to work with the Agency of Human Services and how to ensure that those savings that were developed in the hospital would benefit others.
Thank you.
Senator from Addison.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I inquire of the reporter?
The reporter is interrogated.
Thank you. I am fully supportive and aware of the problem that the committee is trying to solve with this bill. But I'm curious or a little bit concerned on the bottom of page 473, any service. And I'm wondering, I don't see it in the bill, a definition of what service is. And that seems to be quite broad. Hospitals do a lot of things, and I'm wondering what might fall under this if they decide to eliminate a billing service or an education service or some kind of public health service. Is that the same as trying to eliminate or proposing to eliminate, obstetrics or something like that? So what is the definition of service, Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. President. That is a really good question. We did not attempt to define service. And we took it to mean some procedures, services offered within the hospital itself that would have an effect on the local community and the budget, hospital budget.
Okay, Mr. President, I'm wondering, it may be helpful to define service, especially since this is kind of a lengthy process, and it would be a shame to make community members worried about the elimination of something that's more minor, and it may dilute the process for things that are more major if there's always this process for even minor things. So I'm wondering if the committee might be amenable to providing some kind of definition for service.
Thank you, Mr. President. We debated this very question and understand in conversation with the board, the agency, the healthcare advocate, and others, that this will not encompass minor line item changes within the budgetary process. So we decided not to put a definition of service in at this time.
Okay. I'm aware of and supportive of the problem you're trying to solve, particularly the example that was provided in the committee's report. I also wonder if the committee had discussion about how this, and I realize there's already a process that you're changing, that the bill is changing in statute, but if this process might provide somewhat mixed messages to hospitals as we're asking them to reduce costs and in some cases consolidate services and share across hospital boundaries. If this might be giving them mixed messages saying, oh, you have to tell us every time you cut something, and we also want you to cut your budget so that our hospital costs are lower. So how did the committee reconcile that, Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr. President. That's also a good question, and it is fundamental to understanding that the transformation process that's going on with hospitals is not an isolated process, one hospital at a time. Rather, it's an integrated process across the state and regionally, so that as we develop the strategic health plan and we work with other community members or healthcare facilities, the hospital and others will want to ensure access to some of these services that are cut. So, for example, if we think about what happened in Rutland, where the pediatric beds were being eliminated, and it was actually chaos that was caused within the community when that happened. And then the result of that was a whole lot of discussion and negotiation going on, and ultimately some of those beds were not eliminated. So this process here allows for communication with local community folks, as well as with the statewide plan as it's being developed, with other hospitals, with other folks who could provide services or provide beds, so that before anything happens, there's an upfront discussion about a final decision.
All right, Mr. President, I note that the bill takes effect on passage and the strategic healthcare statewide healthcare delivery strategic plan has not yet established. So it seems like it may be difficult to do all of the stuff just described when a strategic plan is not yet in place. So I'm curious, I'm just concerned that in the meantime, a hospital that might be trying to do essentially what we're asking them to do might get caught up in this. If one hospital is eliminating something, it might be moving services to another hospital. And again, I'm sympathetic and agree with the intent of the bill, but I'm worried about the sort of logistics of this process when there's not a statewide strategic plan or a definition of service in the bill.
Is that a question?
No, that's not a question. I think the reporter of the bill. I think that this needs a little bit more work to clarify what is happening. I mean, I think I will vote for it because I appreciate it, but hope that either an amendment on third reading or work in the House can further clarify this process so that we don't make hospitals get stuck between a rock and a hard place when they're trying to reduce their budgets or eliminate small services that don't have the same impact as a major service. Thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to comment on the comments just made by the senator from Madison. I know they're in good, they're thoughtful, But I will say this, the transformation process that's going on right now with hospitals very much is a process of collaborative work between and among hospitals. So we have hospitals in the Northeast Kingdom working together and discussing what services can be shared, how can we move one set of services from here to there. So a lot of that is happening right now. They're working very closely together, and they're not the only ones. In addition, the strategic action plan is an action plan. It will be more fully developed by 2028. But in the meantime, all of the work that hospitals and other community care providers are doing to make sure that patients have access to either community services or hospital services, the development of that plan is ongoing. And it's a discussion that is happening. So if a hospital decides we're going to cut this major service, then they have an opportunity, and particularly with this bill, not just to talk amongst themselves as hospitals or providers, but also to include their local community folks so that there is a public hearing, so that people do understand what is transpiring right now with our healthcare reform initiatives. So, Mr. President, I'm less concerned about any problems that are associated with this. This bill certainly solves a significant problem, and ones that we have seen most recently in our state in Rutland and Copley and UVM. So thank you, Mr. President.
The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you have amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Health and Welfare. The question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. You've ordered third reading of S-189. We have on the calendar for action S-313, introduced on January 27th of 2026, was referred to the Committee on Education, which reports it has considered the bill and recommends that the bill be amended as it appears starting on page 476 of today's calendar, and that when so amended, the bill ought to pass. Listen to the second reading of the bill.
S-313, an act relating to transforming Vermont's career technical education system.
Recognize the senator from Rutland, Senator Williams, for the report of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to report S-313, act relating to transforming Vermont career technical education system on behalf of the Senate Committee on Education. The bill passed with amendment out of the committee 600. With your permission, I'll review the bill section by section. Section 1 sets forth a legislative finding recognizing the importance of career technical education within Vermont's education system. Findings note that CTE programs provide students with opportunities to develop technical skills, explore career pathways, and connect their academic education with real-world workforce opportunities. Section also recognizes that Vermont employees face workforce shortages in a number of industries that are expanding access to career and technical education can help address these needs. Section 2, CTE system transformation sets forth the legislative intent to strengthen and transform Vermont's career technical education system. The section identifies the goals of that transformation, including improving coordination, increasing student access to CTE programs, and supporting successful pathways for students. The committee amendment incorporated in the draft 1.1 clarifies that students should not be denied or prevented from accessing CTE for lack of capacity. Section 3, the effective date, provides that the act will take effect on passage. That concludes my report of S-313. Thank you, Mr. President.
And the question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Education? Are you ready for the question? Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. Perhaps I'll take some privilege as the lead sponsor of the bill to add some color to that brief explanation of our very bold and big intent to transform our career technical education system and provide at its core as much universal and unobstructed access to career technical education as we can for our young people and adult learners in the state. I'm certainly not the first person in either chamber to see the need to advance greater access to career technical education, and I do want to give significant credit to my colleague, the senator from Windsor, who chairs economic development, for making this a passion for decades. But I think people have learned in this chamber that, for better or worse, if I become passionate about something, people might want to duck for cover. And last year, the chamber may remember that we took up what was a limited situation we were hearing about around trying to get access to transportation from some students in a particular CTE service district into a neighboring district so that they could access CTE. And it opened up a whole line of inquiry about how students end up getting waitlisted or denied access to what I hope we begin to consider a universal part of our public education system. And I really want to recall a particular phrase that we found was written into the guidance to students if they should be denied or waitlisted in their home district. This is the formal guidance that was issued to students should that happen, and it included the phrase, "You're on your own." That was in specific relationship to finding transportation to get to another district, but that phrase has stuck with me ever since, because telling 14, 15, and 16-year-olds who are trying their best to explore a passion and a vocation and a sense of purpose that they're on their own to figure that out seems to me something that is contrary to our values and our principles here in this esteemed branch of government. I think it's no secret to folks that this has a lot to do with logistics, governance, and financing of career technical education. And while this particular piece of legislation is much more about vision and intent, I do hope and anticipate that the partnering committee in the House will be able to talk more, as they are, I believe, even today with the Retail Lumbers Association and others, about the dire need for this transformation, as well as the specifics from our CTE directors and other stakeholders about how we get there and how we write those specifics into this otherwise intent-driven language. Mr. President, I had what felt like a real privilege that others participated in to work with an ever-growing group of stakeholders on this career technical education crisis that we face, frankly, where students almost have no sense of why they've been denied and how to access career technical education in what is a larger economic crisis. And many people have heard me say that housing is at the center of our economic mobilization crisis. But I believe access to career technical education takes its place right alongside housing as one of the most urgent issues to address to fix what ails our economy. At the end of the day, to me, this is still about students. It really pains me, and we had students as part of our stakeholder group at every meeting that other senators and House members participated in, but we had students at every meeting who talked about the pain of feeling like they were rejected something that had a lot to do with their future at a very young age. And some of them fought their way through that experience. They were told there simply weren't enough spaces. They had nonviolent behavioral issues that put them at the bottom of the list. Their grades weren't good enough. And we're talking about 8th and 9th graders, Mr. President. So the stories we heard, really, I hope people will take in a sense of urgency. And it relates to me back to one metric that I'll leave people with, and then I will end my remarks. We've heard a lot in the world of literacy about the inflection point that happens in 3rd grade, that we really need to pay attention to proficiency and deep proficiency in reading by 3rd grade, or we tend to be on a negative path for that student for much of the rest of their K through 12 education. We heard that there is a similar inflection point at 7th grade for many young people, that if they don't feel like they have a direction and a sense of purpose, and people helping them to clear the path for them to have a successful vocation and career by 7th grade, we start to lose them. We start to lose them to absence, to, sitting in the back of the classroom and feeling like nobody's looking out for them and they're not sure what they're going to do with their lives. So, Mr. President, although it's just 5 pages of intent language, I hope to the chamber it represents a lot of thoughtful discussion that has happened and that needs to happen to advance universal access to career technical education. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. It appears that even during my lackluster report of the S313, I made a mistake. I know a lot of people will find that hard to believe, but it will not become effective upon passage. It will be effective 1 July 2026. And I did find my copy of the people that testified. We had the Secretary of Education. We had the Legislative Council, Beth St. James, Director of Workforce Development, President of Vermont Business Roundtable, the Executive Director of Advanced Vermont, and the Director of Green Mountain Tech Center. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Chittenden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by saying I'm very supportive of expansion to our career technical education centers. And I have lots of ideas for how to do that. Then I would like to interrogate the presenter.
The presenter is interrogated.
Did the committee take any testimony on the associated costs with the proposals in this bill?
Can you ask the Senator request to?
Please speak up a little, Senator.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever
I
been asked
only
to
have
speak
one
louder.
here.
Did the committee take any testimony on any associated cost with the proposed mandates in the bill?
I don't believe we did.
Okay. And who would be responsible for implementing any of the changes? Would that be the AOE?
They would.
Okay, I thank the senator.
Senator from Bennington.
Mr. President, number one, we're actually on the amendment, which is those few words. But the other is that there are no mandates in the bill. It's simply Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the bill be amended as recommended by the Committee on Education? If so, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And we have amended the bill as recommended by the Committee on Ed. Question now is, shall the bill be read a third time? Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you have ordered third reading of S 313. That completes the orders of the day. Senator from Chittenden.
Pending announcements, Mr. President, I would move that the Senate stand in adjournment until 11 a.m., Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. And if I might just elaborate, you'll note that time is different from our normal time. For the next 3 days, we will have a start time of 11 a.m. The intention, obviously, is to allow afternoon committees, especially the money committees, to process all the bills that have come their way. Generally speaking, we'll go till 12:30 or 1 at the latest. I would try to do a hard stop at 1, but try, if we can, to get out by 12:30. But with that said, and I've mentioned this before, you might want to consider your nutritional intake. We will perhaps be on the floor as long as 1 o'clock. So having a snack or something, just so we don't have to take a break during our attempt to clean up the calendar. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any announcements? Senator from Rutland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to inquire of the Senate President.
The President is inquired of if he so chooses.
He does, Mr. President.
I'm wondering whether word has reached your office about the successful event held this past weekend, which involved our Lieutenant Governor plunging, and whether indeed there would be a razor necessary.
Mr. President, I have not heard about that, but I defer to the President for a report.
As far as I've heard, we did not quite reach the razor, but I have my chief of staff working on those final donations to be sure of it. And I'm sure you will notice if in fact we did reach that goal.
The Senate Government Operations will meet this afternoon at 1:20.
Are there any further announcements? Senator from Essex.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Agriculture will meet at 10:30.
Senator from Wyndham.
Senate Judiciary will meet at 10:30.
Senator from Windsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The sun is shining on your mustache. Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs will meet at 10:30.
Senator from Lamoille, if you can follow that one up.
Transportation at 10:30.
Senator from Washington.
Natural Resources will meet at 10:30. Thank you.
Senator from Chittenden.
Health and Welfare will meet at 10:30.
Senator from Bennington.
President, the Education Committee will meet at 1:15.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Finance will meet at 1:30.
The chair has an announcement. I spent yesterday afternoon helping a senior citizen who is stranded because of the floods of the last couple of years. And I read a piece in VPR about various communities around the state that are still struggling with such issues because a lot of our small towns don't have the money to fix the infrastructure, and FEMA has not come through for some of our small towns that I think deserve it. This senior's nearly 80 years old and has a 3/4 of a mile walk from the bridge that is washed out to bring all her essentials to her home. And I had no idea until I tried starting with 10 gallons of water how steep it was. It was probably a 300 to 400 foot vertical over that 3/4 of a mile. I am not ashamed to say I set one of the 5-gallon jugs of water down about 100 yards into the walk, but I did make it with one of them. I also sat with that person and visited for about an hour because along with the struggle to get basic needs up to her home, she's also very isolated. And so I hope everybody keeps in mind all those folks around this state that are still suffering, those who've lost homes, those who've lost access, and those who are isolated. Thank you. The senator from Chittenden has moved that the Senate stand on adjournment until 11 a.m. Oh, senator from Essex.
Mr. President, I think I wish that she would have reported to you that that bridge will be replaced next week for free on work that I've been working on for 2 years. We would have had it done last year, but the town would not cooperate fully. But we've got the road thrown up. I've actually was able to get a company to go up there and to do the work for free, a local company that you're very well aware of. And by this time next week or soon after, there should be a path for her to be able to travel fully in and out of her property. Thank you, Mr. President.
By then, my legs may have recovered. The senator from Chittenden Central has moved that the Senate stand in adjournment until 11 a.m. Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. Are you ready for the question? If so, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we'll stand in adjournment until 11 a.m. Wednesday, March 18th of 2026.